Mr. Carlyle, how are you?
I'm good, buddy. I'm always thankful. My late son used to have a saying, every minute is a new life. So, so here we are with this minute and another chance.
You saw your late son?
Yes.
Did
My
I
son
know your
passed away.
son? Who's
Matthew.
Yeah.
Matthew Ebanks.
And when did he pass away?
In 2018.
Okay.
Very tragic situation.
Okay.
Nevertheless,
Yeah.
here we are, and he's gone. A brilliant young man he was. Very, very bright. I mean, he could, without ever taking a course in mechanics or anything, he could tell you exactly how an engine would work, for instance. Without ever having had a course in physics, he helped my oldest daughter, Marcia, get through her university physics. A brilliant young man. So we have these people around us. We have these talents. We have these gifts. This intelligence, these smarts, and sometimes we underestimate what we do have.
So he sounds like he took after you, right? Because
now you're flattering me.
because I think you have, from the little bit that we've spoken, you have that, understanding of physics and energy systems, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, without having studied it. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I do have understanding of the matters, and I have a great deal of curiosity to begin with,
Right.
about a lot of things, and happy to use my intelligence. God gives us intelligence for a reason.
Right. Huh. So okay, now I want to get to this invention that you've made. But before we get there, where were you born and what year?
I was born in the year 1951 in Bush Tree Hill. That's where I was born. So that let me for those that mightn't know where Bush Tree Hill is.
Okay, yeah.
Bush Tree Hill is the center of West Bay. West Bay is the center of Cayman, and Cayman is the center of the world. So that's where I come from.
So you're born in the center of the world.
Oh, the world, exactly.
I love that. And so were you always interested in, like you talked about your curiosity? I guess you were always curious, right? So what was your childhood like from a curious perspective?
Oh, well, let's look at the beginning of my education. I went to school I began going to school when I was 7 years old, to Miss Ridley Power School.
And that was in West Bay?
Yeah, I think my parents paid either a threepence or sixpence.
However much that is.
For my tuition. Nobody knows what a sixpence is anymore. But that is 6 pence or 3 pence. And that was the money we had those days. We didn't have dollars, except the men went to sea and they sent home US dollars.
Interesting.
Sometimes. So that's where I started my education. There was some influences around me, maybe my mother as well, who thought that I should be going to school before I was 7. So they brought this up with me. But a youngster leaning toward some semblance of knowledge of the law as well, at 7 years old, or before I was 7 years old, I told them I'm not going to school before I'm 7. That's the legal age. That's what the law demands, and that's what I'm going to do, Mom.
Interesting.
I'm going to stay right here under this fig tree and and innovate.
Interesting. So you didn't want to go to school before 7 because it was the law?
Yeah, that was the law at the time.
So have you always been like that, law-abiding?
I guess I'm law-abiding, but I'm not legalistic.
All right.
When you get to boxed in with all kinds of legalisms. You begin to put restrictions on yourself and others around you, and you tend to then stifle creativity. This is my belief.
Right.
This is my take on it.
Right. I don't think a lot of artists would disagree with where you're going.
So I am always encouraging people to be innovative, to receive those vibes and that inspiration to go out and do something. If you're, I heard you mention artists. I didn't know that this was particularly geared toward artists.
No, it's not. It's a conversation. I mean, I said artists, but to be creative, you could be creative in the mechanical, electrical fields.
Yeah,
as well.
and that's not my sole or best area of creativity. I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think that perhaps my most profound area of creativity is on the stage. Mm-hmm. with comedy,
Mm-hmm.
because the comedy duo Aunt Sookie and Uncle Ezekiel
Mm-hmm.
at least used to be quite popular when we were doing things,
Mm-hmm.
and for me it's always about this stand-up kind of comedy. You don't know what you're going to say next to elicit laughter.
Right.
So you take whatever, in my case, Uncle Ezekiel, I would take whatever Aunt Sookie would say
Mm-hmm.
and put a twist on it
Mm-hmm.
to make people laugh.
So a lot of it was improv?
Improv.
Yeah.
Totally improvised.
Interesting. And that's how you guys sort of went with it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, Aunt Sookie would talk to me about maybe having a script or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I would always say no, because I'd rather go on stage not knowing at all what I'm going to say,
Mm-hmm.
and just take whatever's said and create laughter out of that by putting a humorous twist to it. And so when I go on stage, I go with, if I can say so about myself, with an empty head.
Right. I love that.
There's nothing preconceived or pre-planned
Right.
on my part.
Right. Yeah. I love that. That's kind of how I approach the podcast as well.
I know, and
Yeah.
I was going to say the same thing.
Just kind of
I
like,
realized
let's
that
see
this
what
is
we
what
talk
you're
about.
doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do it as we go.
So I always wanted to know, where did you get the names Aunt Sookie and Ezekiel from? I mean, obviously it's a biblical name, Ezekiel, but how did it all play out?
Yeah, Aunt Sookie, not a biblical name though.
No,
Well, she might be a
not that I
religious.
know.
She might be a religious person. But I'm not even sure that I know where it came from.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Aunt Sookie that started calling herself Sookie. Her birth name is Daphne Orrit,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe she came up with the name,
Mm-hmm.
but it has turned out to be good, I would say, although we're not very prolific with any work on stage at this time.
Mm-hmm.
But I do appreciate the fact that people approach me every day. Not today yet, because I haven't been out on the street or around the phone. But yesterday, for instance, several people are, wanting the Sookie and Ezekiel interaction,
Right.
and encouraging us to do it.
Right.
So if somebody is hearing me that would have encouraged me to do it, my apologies for not doing it recently.
So how did you first get on the stage then?
Well, actually, it was where Aunt Sookie saw me acting in a church play at the Wesleyan Church, was the Pilgrim Holiness Church then, and there was a Christmas play, and I was chosen. I think the name of that play was Angel on a Step Ladder, and I was chosen to be one of the characters in it, and she just thought that I did a good job,
Right.
and invited me to come on stage with her as she presented a traditional or old time Caymanian skits, and so I was invited by her. This was long ago now, and we started there.
What year was that?
I can't remember exactly.
80s, 70s.
Would have been the 70s, or I don't think it was the 60s at all, but it would have been sometime in the 70s, I think, or maybe late 60s too. Long ago.
Was this like pre-Harquell? Was this like?
Yes, it certainly was.
So stages were more like in the church.
Yeah, or at people might have been having a birthday party, or in the school hall, or that sort of thing.
Okay.
Of course, the Harquell came along quite a number of years ago as well, and we've done a few performances there. So as I look back at, summarize, and think over my life, I'm almost 74 years old, and Sookie's nearly 400. In fact, speaking of that, before I go into my little analysis there, speaking of that, I went to get a birth certificate recently, and they said because I'm a senior, they reduced the price by half.
Okay.
So I said to him, Sookie's right over there in the foyer, waiting for Notary Public or Justice of Peace or something to sign something. So if you are going to reduce the price of the birth certificate by the age of the person, you just pray that Sookie don't show up here, because if she does, you're going to owe her a lot of money. You're going to owe her a lot of money. Because Sookie not new to the stage.
That's funny. Yeah, man, I love that. So, so you in primary school in West Bay, what was the name of the school again?
I started off at Miss Redley's school.
Miss Redley?
Redley Powery.
Okay.
Yeah, she had a school house that is still standing, but it's in extremely bad repair. Down on the Iron Shore in the Powery domain, this would be where Andresen Road is. In West Bay. So if you go up,
I've seen it. I've seen that road.
If you go up Stadium Drive and cross Bushtree Hill, you're going to come to a fork that would take you to Papagallo, and the left one is Andresen.
Okay.
And there was the old Watland Daub schoolhouse.
Right.
I didn't go for very long though. I didn't.
Where'd you go after that?
I went to Town Hall School in West Bay, which would be West Bay Primary. Some interesting times, interesting teachers, some pretty strict discipline. Starting off with Miss Redley. Miss Redley was a very serious disciplinarian.
Is that right?
A serious disciplinarian, you hear me? You might be glad that you're not going to her school,
right?
Because she was a serious disciplinarian.
We went to school with some of the nuns, and they were definitely pretty serious when we were in primary school. Like, they were feared, but I can imagine, even a generation before that with Miss Powery, it was pretty even stricter, probably.
Yeah, and
they were still doling out capital or corporal punishment.
Oh yeah. And we had a segregated classroom. It was just one classroom, and the boys were on the south side of the classroom, and the girls sat along the north side of the classroom. People were poor then, and we had to do in makeshift. So the seat that we sat on to write on our slates Most of you probably don't know what slate is.
Right.
If you're going to write anything, you can get on a computer. But we had these slates with a slate pencil to write on and then erase it. Sometimes you erase it by spitting on it, and taking your hand, rubbing it like that.
Really?
Yeah. So it was different. The girls were on the north, boys on the south, and
that's just how it was.
very, very interesting. You'd have people that did pranks. Such as some of the boys would reach out. They would be sitting next to the south door of this ancient building, and they would lean out like that. One of them would hold the next one back, so he could lean all the way out and pick up a rock off the ground and throw it like that. And
onto the roof.
Then there would be this thud,
right.
And
nobody would know where it came from.
And nobody would know where it came from. So the boys would jump up and say, please teacher, somebody pelted the school, Mom. And we're gonna go out and get him. So everybody ran out of the schoolhouse looking for this pigment that was pelted in the schoolhouse.
I love that. That's funny. That's a good one. Teamwork makes the dream work. In that.
Indeed. And that's a powerful thought, but here, teamwork. Teamwork. It's very important. For instance, I'm not an engineer, but yet we have this profound invention that we have 5 patents on that is actually my brainchild. But there had to be teamwork, and sometimes getting the right people on your team can cost you a lot.
Yeah.
I went through at least 3 engineers to try to do what I wanted done before the right one, who's a super engineer, came to us in South Florida from Argentina, actually. His name is Mario.
Okay.
So you got to have the team.
Right.
Things work better when there is a team with a common goal and some good direction from the leader of the team. There has to be focus. There has to be that I'm going to get it done, or we're going to get it done, and I'm going to get it done regardless of how many engineers got to go through. Right. So maybe hundreds of thousands, if not $500,000 or $1 million later, you wind up with something, and you feel the pain. You also have that sense of achievement.
That's a good feeling when you achieve together.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good feeling. Working with a team, that's you can all celebrate, and there's something more powerful about that, creating something as a team, I find, than by yourself.
Yes, indeed, and it's rare that we can create that much all alone. The engineer that did this work, he followed my instructions all alone. He was like 3 engineers in one. Yeah, he could design and execute all the hardware. He could create all the software. He could program everything. And the device is basically about, to a great extent, it's about the software.
Interesting. I wouldn't have guessed that. What for people listening? Tell us now what the invention is, or what it does in a quick synopsis. But I do want to hear why it is the software that makes it work. This device is about the size of my cell phone.
you know what a cell phone looks like. It's about that size, and it does many things. The primary function is to save electricity in electric motors. Let me cut in on myself here to speak a little bit about innovation and inventiveness and creativity that God has put in our hearts.
But before you do, I want to make sure I understand your products. So basically what it does is it reduces the electricity that is needed in an electrical motor?
Yes. What the invention does in that particular instance, the software detects the amount of electricity that the motor needs at any given time. So instead of plugging a motor directly into the wall, which is the way it is normally, it is you plug the device into the wall, and then you plug which is a little computer is what it is, and then you plug the motor into that, and that device is able to, first of all, it establishes, I guess you would call it an AI connection today. It establishes a relationship with the motor so that
it can read it and understand it.
Yes, indeed. Before the startup or during the startup, this little device uses machine learning to understand all the characteristics of the motor that it's paired with.
Right.
I guess you would call that AI.
Right.
That's quite a while back. But anyway, it's machine learning because it knows exactly all the characteristics so that it can best manage that motor.
Right. And does it do that automatically, or is it like something that you have to read? And
No. Nobody needs to interfere with it. It does it automatically. Once the motor is plugged in and it begins demanding electricity, it starts to work like that and understand that motor and understand how to best save the electricity. Because when you have an electric motor, it's about one thing and one thing only: doing work. That's the reason we have the motor, to do work. Let's say that you are going to take a trip to Cayman so that you can actually relax from the big city here, and you arrive at the terminal, and you're waiting for your suitcase to come. So you're looking at this carousel, but the carousel is not moving at that time because there's no reason for it to move. They don't have the suitcases on yet.
Right.
Well, first of all, a life note here. Your suitcase that you're waiting for will be the last one that appears, okay? That's how it works in life. You need patience, as the Bible says. But ye, holy brethren, need patience. So
love is patient.
Exactly, and kind. And I guess it waits at the Cayman airport.
It bears all things.
Yeah, it has to bear a lot, just waiting for the suitcase to come. So that carousel is going to bring your suitcase. You don't think about it, but what is going to drive that belt is going to be an electric motor. Now, under normal circumstances, without our device, that electric motor is plugged directly into the wall. It's using no electricity at first because they haven't flipped the switch. But when they do flip the switch, without our device, you'll notice that the carousel starts with a bang. You can hear the thump.
Yeah, for sure.
You've heard it many times.
Yeah.
having gone to
They
Cayman.
pretty much all start like that, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what you call a hard start.
Right, because there's more electrical power than is needed. Is that what's happening?
Yeah. Well, these are fixed speed motors, and the motor tries to start at full speed. So let's say it's a 2200 RPM motor. When you flip that switch, it's going to try to start at 2200 RPMs.
Right.
So that's why you have that bang, that jerk, that sudden intense inrush current to get the motor started like that. Of course, that is tough on the motor, as well as it uses maybe 5 or 10 times as much electricity as it would normally take to run that motor. Once the motor is going, and it uses a lot less electricity to keep going than it takes to start the motor. So let's say that you're waiting there and somebody's hit the switch and you jumped out of fright because of the big bang, and you're still waiting for your suitcase, and it's coming around, the carousel is coming around, but there's no suitcases on it. What is happening under those ordinary circumstances is that the motor is acting just as if the carousel was fully loaded. So it's using all the electricity necessary to accommodate a loaded carousel, even though the carousel is fully unloaded. There's no suitcases, especially yours. So
it's very inefficient.
Yeah, so ordinarily it's very inefficient. So let's, for instance, let's say that the motor attached to that carousel is built to take 2,500 pounds, to move 2,500 pounds. That's the work that it was designed to do. So it's using all of that electricity. Let's say that there's going to be 100 suitcases on that carousel eventually, or potentially 100. And so just for ease of math, we divide that 2,500 pounds by 100 suitcases, 25 pounds each. This is just an example, obviously. So when it starts, it's using enough electricity to, this is under ordinary circumstances. This has nothing to do with our little computer at all. This is what's happening today in Cayman without our invention.
But not just Cayman Brac, in other airports.
Everywhere.
Right.
Airports, inside of your kitchen,
Right.
in your laundry room,
Right.
and especially in your air conditioners, you always have the hard starts, or you generally have the hard starts, and you always have the excessive use of electricity. Let me demonstrate that by saying, if the attendant then puts on 20 suitcases, that motor is still operating as if there were 100 suitcases there, because it has to, without having a smart device like ours, I call it a smart brain for dumb motors. Without having that, it has to be prepared to take all 100 suitcases.
Sure.
So it's then using 100 suitcases of electricity, no matter how many it has on it, just in anticipation of having 100.
Sure.
So it is, like you're pointing out, extremely inefficient.
Right.
Extremely inefficient.
And so your product then your invention would basically read how much is needed to carry out the work that is currently doing, and just pull that amount of electricity.
You got that right.
Right. And how on earth did you think about this? And when did you think about this?
Well,
and what led you to think about this?
My mind has always been a mind that thinks to solve problems. So I got feedback from a friend named Chris in regard to or thoughts about motor controllers that would save electricity, and
Were you working in electrical fields at the time?
no, I've never worked in electrical fields.
Okay.
A great deal of my business life, I've been a realtor actually.
Okay.
But anyway, I've always believed that God has made us innovative and creative, and we can look for problems to solve, put our minds to it, and come up with a solution.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying that to everybody that's listening here. Mm-hmm. You have something inside of you that will create, because you were created in the image of the Creator.
Mm-hmm.
So inside of you, there is innovativeness, there is creativity, there is that intelligence and potential vision. So as you think about all of life, basically, it's about problem solving. Mm-hmm. And I've always thought that the bigger problem that you solve, the more successful you really are, mm-hmm. and potentially the more money you could make as mm-hmm. well. Mm-hmm. So I could hardly think of a bigger problem than inefficient electric motors.
Mm. True, me too. I didn't even know it was a thing, though.
Yeah.
So when did this first come to your mind? You said you were talking to your friend Chris.
Yeah,
and he was the one pointing out how inefficient the systems were.
Right, and talking to me about making them efficient. Uh-huh. So let me give you a statistic, and most everything is that I have to say about things like this would be based on U.S. statistics, mm-hmm. but I don't think Cayman is much different from U.S. Mm-hmm. other than we're a very small speck mm-hmm. compared to the United States, of mm-hmm. course. Mm-hmm. But the ACEEE, American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy, mm-hmm. ACEEE states mm-hmm. that over 60% of all U.S. electricity is consumed by electric motors.
Okay.
And it clearly states that 15 to 25% of all U.S. electricity can be saved by optimizing the performance of electric motors. Okay. So this is what we set out to do, because that's a huge problem, right, obviously.
Right.
If you want to begin to measure that in dollars, let's say, money. Yeah, the waste there in 2016 would have been somewhere between $58 and $96 billion just for that year, represented by that 15% being wasted.
Right.
So I figured if we can solve that problem, we've solved a big problem for the world.
Right.
So why not solve a big problem if you're out solving problems today, right? So choose a big one. Uh-huh. Choose whatever you can grasp in your heart and your head, and go do it, because whoever I'm talking to right now, you too are creative and innovative, and we need it. We need you. We need your thoughts. We need your gumption. We need you to pursue your dream, and I encourage everybody to believe in themselves, believe in their Creator who put all this in us, and go for it. Mm. Go for it. Mm-hmm. Don't hesitate, and don't. I also put a word of caution in there. Don't believe it's necessarily going to be easy. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Don't necessarily believe that it's going to be smooth sailing, or that everybody's going to believe in you, mm-hmm. or that even sometimes you yourself might not feel like believing in you, mm-hmm. might not feel like believing in that dream. Mm-hmm. But Jesus says whoever holds out to the end will be saved. So you got to keep pushing through, whether you can see the light at the end of the tunnel or not sometimes. Know that, as I'll give you a quote from a famous book written in 1928 by a British archaeologist called The Richest Man in Babylon. A quote from that book says, "There is no chain of disasters that doesn't have an end." There's no chain of disasters that doesn't have an end. So you might think that you're bumbling, going on from one disaster to another, but you're going. And it will come to an end, and you will arrive, and you will achieve, and just dig deeper and harder, and be prepared for people to scoff at you sometimes.
Because that's what they do when the disaster happens, but you have to be willing to embrace that.
Yeah, it's going to happen. It's going to happen, and what makes the people successful is to keep going.
Right.
Keep the dream.
Right.
Keep believing. Keep
working
and innovating, and sometimes taking the very last penny out of your pocket to feed a dream.
Right.
Not knowing exactly how it's going to materialize. Or sometimes even whether it will materialize. But if you
and what do you say about situations like that when you're working on something, or you have a dream for something that may not actually materialize?
Well, the point is that generally you don't know whether it's going to materialize. You're just this kind of crazy person that believes it could materialize. So I'm going to try it. And in order to try it, I got to climb way out on the end of a limb.
Sure, I
and
guess.
the limb is hanging over the edge of a cliff, mind you. So you're reaching for this fruit that you don't know quite, even whether the fruit is there sometimes. But you have this deep conviction that you can achieve something that you can't see.
Yeah.
And everything that we do see, the New Testament tells us, comes from things that we can't see. So the power in all this is what you can't see. Is what you can't see.
Right.
So, buddy, go for it. You don't have to see it to believe it. And if you do believe it and you speak it out, you can often achieve what the naysayers, who you will get in contact with, or they'll get in contact with you, tell you that it can't be done, or that you shouldn't have done it, or that it costs too much, or look at what you did, look at the mistakes you made, look at the hardships that you put on yourself and others, and why not? But I'm going to tell everybody, achieve, go for that achievement. And this is my conviction, at least, because one of my favorite songs is Man of La Mancha, from Man of La Mancha, The Impossible Dream. Begins, to dream the impossible dream. So as you have that dream, it may appear impossible, but it's your dream. It's your dream. That dream won't go away unless you abandon it. Other people can't abandon it for you. If you achieve what you're setting out to achieve, it will be achieved. Even if later on you come to some stage that it seems to be in hiatus or not quite going all the way or where you wanted it to go, but it's still what it is. In our case, we have 5 United States patents that show that it's real, and the patents are, of course, are valuable.
Can you show us those patents?
I can show you one.
Okay, and I'm curious to know. So is the thing that you created so complex that it requires 5 patents? Why not just one?
Well, our belief is 5 patents are better than one because it takes a stronger grip on the technology for when you go to sell it.
Right.
So now it's
protected
in other words, if we were selling this technology at this stage, what we would be actually selling and what we do desire to sell is the patents themselves.
Is that right? That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you just sell the patent and then let someone else deal with
yeah, let a Bill Gates with all that financial muscle
make it happen.
Yeah, make it happen.
Right.
That's our thought.
Right.
So this is one of the patents. Shall I turn it around for the camera?
Yeah, I mean, we can. I'm sure I can transpose that on the screen, but that's super cool.
And you can see that it's quite thick.
Yeah.
This is not a mousetrap situation.
What does that mean?
It's not simple. It's a very complex. It's a very complex engineering feat.
It looks like a textbook.
Yeah. So you have all these pages, all the schematics, all of how the thing works. More schematics. You have these lengthy introductions and descriptions of it. You have the citings of other patents that existed or do exist. So you have all this writing, and these pages are all double, by the way. So you got writing on the front and the back, and you got all these pages. Let me see. I think that this particular patent is. I counted at some point. It has. I think it's 32 pages or more. Anyway, you can see it's really quite thick. It got a quarter inch of nothing but information, and
it looks awesome. I love seeing it.
Yeah,
I've never seen.
Look at the seal.
Yeah, the U.S. the United States of America seal. I've never seen a patent before. Like, I've heard about patents, and I mean, it's just, it looks real cool.
Yeah, let me quickly read what it says on the very front page, which it'll say that on every patent issued. It says the Director of the United States Patent and Trademark Office has received an application for a patent for a new and useful invention. The title and description of the invention are enclosed. The requirements of law have been complied with, and it has been determined that a patent on the invention shall be granted under the law.
Nice.
Therefore, this United States patent grants to the persons having title to this patent the right to exclude others from making, using, offering for sale, or selling the invention throughout the United States of America, or importing the invention into the United States of America, and if the invention is a process of the right to exclude others from using, offering for sale, or selling throughout the United States of America, or importing into the United States of America products made by that process for the term set forth in 35 U.S.C. 154A2 or C1, subject to the payment of maintenance fees as provided by 35 U.S.C. 41B. See the maintenance schedule and so on, signed by the Director of the United States Patent and Trademark Office. So,
so what year did you patent that?
Our first patent was granted in 2013, I think. And these are 20-year patents. These patents last for 20 years. We have a monopoly for 20 years. But we do have 5, and there would have been a series of grants.
Right.
So some would have been granted much later than that.
Right. Huh. So how long did it take to come from idea to patent?
Good question. Let me see if I can dig into my memory bank here. It was in December 2008 that I got really serious about solving the problem. By the way, it doesn't only solve that particular problem that we've described. In the case of your carousel, that starts with a bang on the ordinary circumstances. It solves the bang too, because it's a soft start. That instead of letting a huge spike of electricity go to try to start it, it ramps up in a smooth curve instead.
Yeah,
and many other features designed to manage motors and the entire electricity grids. So December 2008, I started. In honest, I would say, there were several discouraging years.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Before, and numerous engineers, lots of money spent, lots of time and hopes and dreams and blood, sweat, and tears.
Right.
And but finally, the right engineer came to us.
Right.
Kind of miraculously.
Did he hear about it, or how did he come to you?
God sent him. Had to be. Because by that time, there had been at least 2 other engineers that we'd paid lots of money to do what I wanted done, which was what I wanted done was kind of crazy, actually. But them and the money had faded away, and I'd gotten no result that I really wanted or needed.
And this guy comes along.
Yeah, he comes along in 20. I think it was in 2010 or 2011. I'm not sure, but maybe in 2010, I think it was, maybe mid to late 2010. So we would have been in it for at least a year and a half, 2 years before
He showed up.
And he came to the United States as an immigrant from Argentina. He came to a job that didn't exist.
Okay.
His boss got him into the United States on a work permit, but the boss didn't have the work for Mario to do.
Okay.
And he's got to be one of the smartest people on the planet. So I had been introduced to a guy by the name of Ed in the Miami International Airport area. His firm does reharnessing of airplanes a lot.
Okay.
And they also make little drones and electronic stuff.
Right.
So I was introduced to him so that when we got a device, I'd have a manufacturer. We never did go to manufacturing.
Right.
But anyway, one day, Ed saw me fail over and over. He saw me try over and over. He saw me not achieve and not have the right mind or the right group of engineers to do what I wanted done. And so I was in a hiatus at that time. And one day Ed called me and he says, "Carlyle, I was at a party last night, and a friend of mine who is in a similar business to mine tells me that he has brought in a good engineer from Argentina, but he really doesn't have any work for him to do. Would you like to try him?" Well, in less than a heartbeat, my answer was yes. Yeah, I'll try another one.
Yeah. I've
been through enough of them as it is. let me keep shooting at it.
Right.
Even if I'm shooting with my own blood. So we took Mario on. He began working at Ed's plant, trying to do what I wanted done. What I wanted done was pretty crazy. It was to try to resurrect an old technology and try to patent it. I'm not even sure what it was all about. But anyway, I set him to work. I set Mario to work also, trying to make something out of something that could not qualify to make anything out of. All the patents on those old devices had been expired and everything, so we wouldn't have been able to get a patent even if I could do the nonsense that I was setting out to do.
Okay.
But even Mario couldn't do it. Thank God. And then one day Mario calls me or sends me an email saying, Carlyle, can I quit this effort? This is months into the effort. This is paying Mario week after week after week, going nowhere, apparently. But I'm telling you, there's no chain of disasters that doesn't have an end. So
he called you.
He called me and he says, may I quit trying to do what you want to do and start from scratch with all modern technology? Because the old stuff was analog. And he says, we'll do a digital device to do everything that you want to do, including having Wi-Fi capability, having the ability to communicate, which is a powerful part of the software.
Sure.
Let me start. Well, in less than a heartbeat, my response was, yes, Mario, go for it. You know, a man with a vision should not be impeded. And so I didn't impede Mario. And by sometime in 2011, Mario had a working prototype doing what I wanted done, including the communications. So here was sitting ready to apply for a patent. Within 2.5 years of that initial time that I went to Florida to start all this up and take over an old analog technology and go somewhere with it, which couldn't be done. And we had one disaster after another. That was the 2008. You folks would remember that was the height of the financial crisis. So we were attempting to do something probably at the worst possible time.
Right.
So much so that I went with Chris to get introduced to Ray, who had this whole analog technology, that had gone nowhere. Never did get it off the ground. So we took 2 checks to pay Ray. I had to pay Ray just to get started, just to sign a preliminary agreement, $25,000.
What's Ray?
Ray was the inventor of the old analog stuff.
Right.
So I was going to be introduced to him.
Right.
And I wanted to try to resurrect all that.
Right.
And so on. I mean, I'm dreaming.
Right, but turned out to not be necessary.
Well, it turned out to be impossible as well. And we overcame the impossible and wound up with a fully digital device that could do everything that I could dream about, which is many, many functions. So, but just to give you a little bit of a thought about the hardships and the uncertainties and the discouraging circumstances sometimes. You know, the U.S. has a rule that if you bring in $10,000 or more, you have to declare it.
Yes, I've seen that.
And so I wanted to pay Ray to get started and get some agreement with him and put him to work and make him do what he couldn't do or I couldn't I couldn't make him do. And that took $25,000. So Chris was going with me to make the introduction, and so I went to a local bank. I'm not going to name the bank.
So why you didn't wire transfer it? You couldn't do that back then, no? That wasn't that long ago, was it?
And well, I did many wire transfers after that to keep the effort going, but I never thought about it. I just thought to take
cash
to take drafts.
Okay.
So I figured what I would do, I would take a draft for $9,000 on my person, didn't have to declare it, and give Chris one for $9,000,
right.
And then I would take and make up the difference, which would have been $7,000 from my credit card. All well planned. But let me tell you how crazy it is and how difficult it's been and how tenacious we've had to be. At the very outset in 2008, after giving Ray the drafts and giving him the cash from my credit card, which I got from the cash from Wells Fargo, Ray called me shortly after that, and he said to me, Carlyle, your checks have bounced. Now, these are bank drafts.
Yeah. I remember bank drafts. I forgot about bank drafts. I forgot that was even a thing.
We're not there anymore.
No.
That's ancient history.
Right.
But these are bank
They're
drafts.
not supposed to bounce.
They're not supposed to bounce.
Right.
But I said, Ray, that's impossible because they're not my checks. They're bank drafts.
Right.
Bank drafts don't bounce.
Right. This was 2008?
2008. Everything was going belly up, practically. And I was still trying, dreaming about this, not thinking financial crisis makes it impossible to work.
Right.
But anyway, he proved to me that the checks, the two drafts had bounced. The bank didn't take long fixing the problem.
But they had a problem.
Well, I could have lost everything from the outset.
Right.
And maybe somehow I'm there again, or you're there, or somebody listening to me is there that looks like everything, and including myself and my family, looks like everything is going to collapse before it gets off the ground, before the ship leaves the dock, it's going to sink. But don't give up. Keep believing. Keep going for your dream. Don't give up, because you may well have something in your hands that can do a lot for humanity, for people. You can, and it's not necessarily going to be easy. So eventually the checks the two bank drafts got rectified. Ray got paid, and I started throwing $50,000. I can't remember whether that was $50,000 a month or not. I think it was $50,000 a month toward Ray and his
50 a month?
Yeah, toward Ray and his organization to do what I wanted done and resurrect this whole thing and make it digital or whatever I wanted done and set up communications and whatever. And it seemed to want to
almost collapse at that point.
Yes. And then after we got over that hurdle, then we started throwing $50,000 a month after it going nowhere. And that went on for quite a while, 2.5 years before we got from that initial thing to being able to apply for a patent, which costs money too, of course. And so it was an interesting journey of tenacity, let's put it that way, and pain, and hopes and dreams, and challenges of every kind, including self-doubt. But I'm telling you, don't give up. And even if you come to a stage where everything seems to be in limbo, remember the past. You made it to the point of actually creating the thing and having the patents. 4 of these patents are with our attorneys in Florida. I got one. So I can only say to whoever's listening, whatever dream you got, don't give up on the dream. Dream a big dream. Dream something that can help a lot of people, or maybe it's only a few that you can figure out how to help or whatever. But let that creativity that is God-given go wild in your life, and be prepared that it's going to be challenging, but you can do it.
Amen to that. Now, I want to talk about Jim Knapp, because somehow, I guess, you met this guy.
Yeah, Jim tells you how I met him, actually, I think.
That's true. I did see the video, but let's talk about Jim Knapp to people who may not know. He was recruited and educated by IBM. This is from the Cayman Compass, an article, because he lived in Cayman. He's not from Cayman, he's from the U.S.
Right.
He served in the U.S. Air Force as a teacher for computer guidance systems. He served as a technology rep on the National Security Forum in 1989 and as a delegate to the White House Conference on Small Business under Bill Clinton. He founded iNet, a research and development firm that specialized in digital imaging and voice recognition technologies, which was sold to IBM for $25 million in 1989. His firm developed one of the first online security trading platforms. I understand that he created JPEGs.
Yes. Everybody knows JPEG, I think.
Yeah, this guy has very storied and illustrious career. He came to Cayman in 1993, and was helpful in liberalizing Cayman's telecommunication sector. And this guy, he's done a lot, knows what he's talking about. And I've seen a video of him talking about your product. He's there.
Yeah. Yes.
And he's vouching for it.
Exactly. And just meeting Jim Knapp was almost miraculous in itself.
So tell me about that.
It was all about making the effort to keep going.
Right.
And so actually Billy Adam introduced me to Jim Knapp. I said, Billy, I need money to keep going.
Right.
And he said, well, maybe I can't give you money, but I can introduce you to somebody.
Right.
So that's how the connection came about with Jim. And I think it's a very profound connection, because Jim, like you're pointing out, is well storied, well recognized, has done big things like JPEG, served under President Reagan and President Clinton, so well recognized, featured lecturer at Harvard School of Business, Harvard, mind you, School of Business, MIT, Oxford University, Cambridge University, and 100 others. 100 other universities. I mean, I could not have found a more profound person to make an assessment of a technology than Jim Knapp. And so I found him not because I set out to find such a person, because if I was trying to set out to find such a person, I might have gone to Harvard. But nowhere in Harvard was I going to find somebody that was a professor at Harvard, but also a professor at MIT, a lecturer at Cambridge or Oxford, University in Singapore, and wherever Jim has been, 130 countries, he says. I couldn't have found that because I could not have found another professor who'd been an advisor to the White House twice, for instance. I mean, the man is beyond qualified.
Right. And where did you find him?
I found him by just continuing my effort.
Hearing came on.
Yeah, to bring about this technology.
So how long did it take you to convince him that this was a viable product, or did
I just had to show it to him, and initially I was showing him the old analog technology and telling him about my dream. And the old analog technology just couldn't cut it.
Right.
Couldn't cut it. So if you listen to the clip I sent you, it begins by saying that he, Carlyle, now has the IME, which is a digital technology with lots of functions. So we progressed from something that was really obsolete, analog, obsolete, to something that only a genius could actually, a genius of an engineer could actually bring into being. So Mario came to me miraculously. I view that as a miracle. How Ed was at that party that night and remembered me was hard to explain. Hard to explain. And my efforts to keep going, I wound up talking to Jim, showing him the old technology, his recognizing that the idea had merit, but the technology didn't. And then he goes on and says, Carlyle now has the IME, which is fully digital communications and so on. So that's how I met Jim, just pursuing the dream. Pursuing the dream. And as you pursue the dream, buddy, I do believe that you should read a quote that begins like this: whatever you can do or believe you can, begin it. And if I can paraphrase the rest of the quote, it basically says that you will find, as you are pursuing it, something you believe you can do, even though you mightn't be able to get a perfect handle on it initially, you believe that you can do this thing. It says that you will find that all sorts of things come to your aid to get it done. Chance meetings. How big a chance of a meeting, man, I'm feeling a thrill all over me. How big of a chance of meeting could it have been for Mario to fly thousands of miles to come to a job that
wasn't a job,
that wasn't real, and that his boss would have known the person that I knew, that I knew, and who knew my hopes and dreams, and the connection was there. I just can't explain that naturally. In that's super,
I feel like that's
supernatural. And Jim came the same way. My pursuit of the dream got me Jim, and Jim is the best possible person to give a testimonial about something like this. You can't find better qualifications.
So, have you sold these patents yet?
We have not sold the patents.
Why not?
They are in good standing. I can't.
Why does nobody want this? Do they not know that it exists?
That's the big part of the problem. The proper introduction to the right group or individual. So we're once again in a kind of a hiatus in regard to making the sale. But what we want to do is clear my head, sell the patents, not go into manufacturing. We don't have the financial muscle for it. We don't have the connections for it. Sell the patents. So we're at that kind of hiatus and that kind of blood, sweat, and tears, but not the money to execute properly, to be honest with you. We just don't have the money to organize properly and to execute properly, but we know that we have the product that the world needs. Let me give you an example where the ACEEE, American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy, says 15 to 25% of U.S. electricity can be saved by optimizing the performance of electric motors, which is what our device does. It says, and we also measured emissions, and the decline is similar. So the decline in the decline in the use of electricity runs parallel to the decline in the emissions. So now we're solving
2 problems at least.
2 problems, and 2 big ones, 2 huge problems. The emissions ain't good for the planet, ain't good for the individuals. And so now, and that's a very respected organization. I think started in 1980.
So are there any competitors? Anything out there?
No, there's no competitors
doing
for
anything similar?
No, as far as I know, there isn't. And understand that we have 5 United States patents, so it's going to be very difficult for them to compete because they can't get a patent.
Right. So
they'll
have to create something completely new.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because, or we got 3 of these patents, the first 3, without any objection from the patent office. No objection.
Interesting.
That in itself is a miracle.
That tells you something, right?
Yeah.
That tells you that there's no one out there that has something similar.
And so Frank, our attorney in Largo, Florida, called me one day or wrote to me one day after we had gotten that 3rd patent. He says to me, Carlyle, you're skewering my averages. You're skewering my averages. I always tell clients that they have a 5% chance, maximum 5% chance of getting a patent on the first try. And here you are, having done it 3 times on the first try. I did some math, and
the chance of that happening?
The probability of that happening is very, very slim.
Right.
So another miracle, I would say.
Right. At least he didn't have a setback there. Yeah.
No, there was no setback. And Frank is a very, very brilliant man. He had to take and do all of these schematics to make the application. So, and write everything necessary to make the applications 5 times over. So I've just seen one miracle after another, and here we are. And I have to believe no matter how many disasters I might be suffering today, there is no chain of disasters that won't come to an end. So I declare in the name of Jesus, we're going to sell these patents, bring a bunch of money to Cayman to help our people, and apply that money to do that. Because we just had a general election. Everybody's got good intentions. But you're going to need some serious innovation to fund all of those good intentions.
Right.
I believe we have a good government. I really, truly believe that. I'm rejoicing that they were able to get together and cooperate, and I'm going to the meeting in West Bay tonight where we have a coalition government in West Bay, 2 from one party, 1 from the other party, and 1 independent, all
meeting on stage.
All there to serve us. And so I'm thankful, but they're going to need to be paying attention to what it takes to drive the changes that they are talking about.
Yeah.
So I've the premier designate knows about these patents and knows about the technology, and we've spent time praying together and so on in the past. I've given them my best thought about where to raise money to drive the programs forward. I've written to them.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the patents.
Sure.
It's just about innovation and the way to look at
things.
things.
Yeah.
From up here down instead of inside the box, trying to
Right.
figure it out.
Right.
And so I've given them my best innovative thoughts on that.
So, how are you trying to sell this right now? And wait, hold on. This is what I wanted to ask. I want to know that, but I also want to know: so it's a retail product,
This
or it could be both retail.
No, the crazy thing about this is the business case for this is a very exceptional, almost miraculous business case itself. In other words, somebody might buy the patents, but when it goes to the public, the little device pays for itself in the savings.
What do you mean?
The savings translate into much more than it would take to manufacture and distribute the device.
Okay.
And there are government programs and mandates in the United States and probably other countries too, other major countries, that support this sort of thing. There are mandates for electric companies that say that they must save electricity wherever they can.
Right.
And obviously for good reason.
Right.
There are laws in place, bipartisan laws in the States that support this sort of thing. So the business case is such that as you look at it, the distributor of this can make a lot of money through rebates just in manufacturing it and putting it out there through the power plants. So the retail part of the distribution would be through power plants. So you have a very limited number of customers. Let's say Bill Gates bought it. You have a limited number of customers to deal with because all you're dealing with is the power plants. And PG&E, for instance, in California, has got millions of customers. So instead of trying to deal with millions of customers, you deal with PG&E, who's billing them anyway all the time. Every month, those millions of bills go out. So if those millions of bills said to those millions of customers with many, many motors each, because the world is driven by electric motors, everything. You might think that you're going to go to the gas pump and your car is going to be driven by the gasoline in your gasoline motor, but to pump the gasoline, you had to use an electric motor.
Yeah.
For instance, I mean, it's everywhere, doing everything.
Yeah.
So our vision and business case is that the electric company would offer it free of charge to their customers, with the caveat that they are going to split the savings made between the ratepayer and the electric company, because that is legal now in most states. So
because then otherwise the power plants, why do they want to use it? Because it's going to reduce the money that they're getting from their clients.
Yeah, but they're on the mandate to do it.
Which I understand.
If they can do it, they must do it.
Which I understand.
For instance, very early on in our research and development, in 2009 actually, we took one of the old analog units to prove that to try to prove that if we could create the technology, that it could attract the rebates, which would be foundational to making a profit up front. Because the cost of manufacturing isn't that high, and where these power plants could put it out, let's say, at $350 a unit, it might only cost $50 a unit to manufacture.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe $75 to manufacture and distribute, maybe $100. But that's still going to leave $150 profit on each unit or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that profit, a big chunk of that profit can be realized just by the rebate. So what we did was we took one of the old analog three-phase units to a plant in Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
And that plant processes plastic. So they grind plastic day and night for recycling. They recycle plastic. So they have all these electric motors just grinding plastic all the time. So I don't know. We paid I think it was $5,000 for that old analog three-phase unit. Took it there, but it probably cost me $50,000 to do the exercise to prove that rebates are possible with this type of device. So we hooked it up, and I had an electrical firm in Florida that went there and hooked it up, and I paid the hotel bills and the airfares and the food and whatever. Like I'm saying, it's probably that $5,000 thing turned into a $50,000 bill by the time. But I figured it was worth it when it come down to marketing. So it turned out that it saved 15% of the electricity that was being used by those grinders, by the grinders. And having submitted that, you need to go?
No. I mean, we need to go here in a second, but because with the video with Jim Knapp, you guys go through a demonstration, and it actually shows. I can't remember exactly what you all were doing, but it shows how it used just the optimum amount of electricity. So you could see the savings there in the little experiment that you guys were doing. So yeah, I mean it seems to work.
Let me just conclude quickly about what happened with that marketing experiment, that rebate experiment. After submitting the results, which I still have within the business case, to Western Mass Electric, immediately they got a 50% rebate to prove that if we could get to where we are now, the rebates are possible.
I mean, it sounds like. I mean, and this isn't the first time we've talked about this, but it just sounds like a product that is right for its time, and I just don't understand why the patent hasn't been bought yet, I guess.
Yeah, and that's a great part of that is because of organization, effort that requires money that I don't have at the moment. It takes money to do anything.
I don't think that power plants are your clients, though.
No, they're not my clients.
I don't think they're the ones who need to buy the patent, though. I think it needs to be another company.
I agree. The company could be, let's say,
wireless people who make wireless routers.
Yeah, or the company could be an organization that Bill Gates put together years and years ago, called the Breakthrough Energy Coalition, for instance. So they'd buy it, and they would work with this is in our business case now, they'd work with the power plants, because the power plants already got all the millions and millions of customers. They'd work with the power plants to actually distribute the retail product. The power plants wouldn't charge the customers. they would just get the customers to agree to give them some of the money saved. So anyway, we've achieved all of that. We stand here today, and your questions are very succinct and legitimate, and that's where we are. But we continue to believe that there's no chain of disasters that won't come to an end.
Yeah.
We continue to know that we've done something that, in Jim Knapp's words, can help everybody in the world.
He did say that.
That's not a small thing. To dream a dream of that size is not a small thing.
Yeah.
So I could say congratulations, Carlyle.
Yeah.
And I encourage everybody else to dream that dream.
I mean,
and
just-
everybody else to innovate as they can. So go ahead.
No, I mean, I just wanted to say congrats too. I mean, just looking at that patent, it looks so beautiful. It looks like prestigious. You know, you don't just get a patent like that.
No, you don't. You don't.
So it's
If you look
quite
at it-
extraordinary.
If you look at the number on this patent,
9 million and something I saw.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
9.5 million.
And that's how many patents have been.
Basically, that's how many patents has been issued in that category. So the probability of getting a rejection on those that we didn't get any rejection on would be 9 million multiplied by so many potential conflicts in any of those 9.5 million devices. Plus, this is only one category. So can you imagine all the patents that from Japanese electronics and Korean electronics and American electronics, the probability of getting a patent, definitely 3, without any objections from the patent office, is almost 0.
And to me, it signifies that you have a very, to use your words, succinct product that doesn't have any. You can't really criticize it, I guess, right? Because the patent office would look at it and be like,
yeah, it works.
Okay, it works.
It works, and we demonstrate that it works in the very same video
right,
that
right.
that
and
you
at,
saw.
and at the power plant in Massachusetts, and
They did that 50% rebate, $2,500. They did it quickly. They were on
and
the.
so what about that power plant? Did they not want to purchase the patent?
No, we didn't have a product at that time either,
No?
and we didn't approach them to purchase the. We sort of.
Why not?
We saw. Well, what they worked with was the old analog device, just to prove that.
But now that you have the digital one,
I suppose we could go back
right,
to them. We need organizing funds.
right,
We need funds to pursue
right,
the end game here,
right,
which is the sale of patents.
right.
There's funds needed basically,
Yeah.
and also, and I'm sure God will send us the personnel to make all this possible, as well as the money. I have to believe that, because I cannot see that we could possibly have something that can do this much good for the world, and it never gets deployed.
Yeah.
I have to believe that
Yeah.
it will somehow get deployed.
I agree. I think it will.
And I pray so. And one more time, I'm going to encourage you and anybody else that is hearing me to use the innovative spirit that you have. We have two innovations, one of which I'll talk to you about after this podcast. But we have this energy management system that manages not only for the individual motors, but for the entire grids. And we also have another Caymanian brain child in a liquid concentrated coffee that is all natural, requires no refrigeration, no preservatives,
Mm-hmm.
and it is the best product suitable, we believe, to be infused with CBD to take the CBD trend that is exploding
Mm-hmm.
in the States
Mm-hmm.
and the coffee trend that has always been there in the hundreds of millions of cups.
Which I didn't know was the second biggest commodity in the world. You
It
told
is.
me that.
Yeah.
And ChatGPT confirms.
Oh, okay. Well,
Not saying I didn't trust
it
you.
wouldn't conform it to me.
What?
Because I don't know how to use it.
No? You don't know how to use ChatGPT? Simple.
Yeah, I
No,
suppose I could learn.
It's just asking questions to a prompt.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah.
So I'm saying that I thank you for checking. Actually.
Yeah, I mean, I
Good
think
to check.
we have to meet Martian, all right? So, but
No,
I
no,
do want to. I guess I was thinking we would talk about this on this podcast and talk about the coffee product on another podcast.
Yeah.
I think
How often do you have podcasts?
Once a week.
Once a week. So
and you could come back again soon. It doesn't matter to me.
Next Saturday.
Could do next Saturday probably. Let me check the schedule.
Well, I'm mentioning the coffee product because I'm also excited about that.
It is exciting.
A Caymanian innovation again.
Right.
And with tremendous potential to help a lot of people.
Right.
Millions of people that could benefit from the wellness offered
I would love to try it.
by CBD.
Mm-hmm.
And people going to drink the coffee anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You're never going to have an economy so bad that people not going to drink coffee. They're going to need it worse, and they're going to need the coffee and the CBD the worse it gets.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, thanks for the thought.
Yeah.
And thanks for the invite.
Yeah.
And we were excited because we're here in this world and able to do something.
Yeah.
And do something that is pretty vast, I believe. And once again, you struggle to take it to market, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
The struggle is there,
Right.
but the facts are the facts.
Yeah.
The innovations are the innovations.
Yeah.
Nobody can do anything about it again. The patents are there.
Yeah. I think you've gone through the hard part. I think this final push now shouldn't be as hard. Hopefully not. I don't know, but obviously. But
No. I agree with you. The hardest part, and particularly the most risky part,
Yeah.
is
that's
trying
us,
to
right?
trying to go to.
Trying to figure it out. Okay, so we're gonna wrap here. But thanks a lot. Take that call. Later.